what we want to sort of talk about first off really is some of the sort of different go-to-market strategies that telcos have in the smart home. The sort of a couple of sort of really key ones. There's the going through the router, which we're going to talk about what Telia does in that area, and then there's kind of like the mobile guys who don't have that access, who are doing a different approach, and then we've seen what Deutsche Telekom, for example, are doing with the Kivicon platform in terms of building a bit more of an ecosystem and platform approach. Adarsh, from the analyst side of things, which of those platforms, those approaches, do you see kind of being most successful at the current time? Or is it very much a horses for courses approach?
I think in terms of the approach, I think the end-to-end sort of solution has been primarily targeted, like say from the telcos. I think in Europe it's still very recently you're seeing like say telcos getting into the whole smart home market. If you take an example of the North American market, you'll see like an AT&T sort of solution, where you have basically the telco going in with their sort of router, or like say their gateway, their platform, like say the digital life, and they have like say a curated sort of set of devices as well, which sort of play together very well. I think there have been like say more sort of point solutions approach as well, where you have like say maybe a DIY solution which directly communicates with a tablet or a smartphone. And I think the platform approach is very interesting because that is where like say a lot of the value is. So you'll see, I think there's been a lot of competition with regards to platforms where you had like say, again, say take an example of the AT&T Digital Life. They sort of had I think partnership with Telefonica where you saw the O2 deployment using the AT&T Digital Life sort of solution. So I think platform is very, very important because it kind of brings together the entire ecosystem, makes it more seamless in terms of the interoperability or the way that actually, like say, devices connect and play together. So I think platform is where, like say, the majority of the focus, at least going forward, will be. This could be, like say, a telco sort of specific sort of platform, be it like the Kivicon, or it could even be, like say, a Nest Lab sort of platform where you have the works with Nest sort of program and how they actually like sort of are building their own ecosystem with like say a number of devices. So I think like it's still very new to say if say a particular approach will actually work, but at least in the initial stages, I think an end-to-end solution is where like say a lot of the traction is at the moment.
Okay. Yasmin, obviously you talked about Telia Sense this morning. Good opportunity now maybe to talk about your connected home platform. So tell us kind of your strategy there, what you've done so far, and obviously the launch, which was quite recent.
Yeah, I would say one of the challenges with smart homes is that there are people living in them. And that can be challenging at times because they don't want to pay for the solutions you come with, and they have teenagers and tech-savvy dads who introduce new elements. If I was at AT&T coming with a nice shiny portfolio, I would see it change over time. Suddenly you don't have a coherent smart home. Now we launched something we call Premium Zone, where on our network routers, or home routers in Sweden, 1.2 million of them, have upgraded them so we have the ability to expose digital services. So what it really is, the ability to come with if then that kind of solutions. And it's not actually launched yet, it's implemented, but going live here in December, where you open up for partners and developers that they can utilize that. Okay, we know if someone's in the zone, if someone comes into the zone, or someone leaves the zone. And an example of an app or service is something we did with Spotify, where we have called co-play, where based on who is in the zone, you can have a mutually accepted playlist. I don't know how it's going to work at my place because we have very different likes in music, but it gives a social aspect. So it really is opening up the creativity of developers and partners. And again, a bit like Telia Sense, coming with a platform, delivering, of course, connectivity, which is what we do really well, and making sure that privacy and security is handled in a safe way.
Yeah. So again, just to be clear, so obviously you have the router in the home. You've built a software layer on top of that developers then come in and build services for the smart home exactly. and be used through the router. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's rolled out to all our home users, so it's already there. They don't have to go and buy anything new or subscribe for anything new. They just need to say, yes, I want to use this service.
Yeah, and it's an app-based service.
So developers, they will make an app, and the users will sign up for that app. So that's also a way of containing, okay, who uses it is the ones that are signed up. Yeah. So it's an app per app.
And roughly how much are you going to be marketing that at?
Free.
It's free.
Yeah. I said the customers don't want to be paying. No, we're exploring the whole business dynamics of this area. Again, a bit like Telia Sense this morning, where we talked about the partners, trying to find, okay, what are the business models that are going to be working? We want to make sure that this is new behavior. A smart home is new behavior for the people living there. So let's not put too many barriers in place. Let's get creative developers working on some really cool things that we as a telco wouldn't have dreamt of. And then we'll find ways of monetizing.
Do you think there are any particular problems that need solving at the moment in terms of what a smart home can offer?
I think there's many problems. Just turning off the lights after my kids leave the house is one of them. No, when we look at smart homes, you quickly go into smart buildings as a problem area. You know, it's leakage, utilities and waste management, those kind of things. For the actual smart home, no, there's no killer use case in our view. There are security and those kind of things already taken by players who are good at that.
Yeah. Is that an opportunity or a real disadvantage, this no need for killer app, Adarsh, in the smart home? I mean, do you agree with that, first of all?
I think in terms of as an entry point, you can sort of see this trend where, initially if you see in the US, you had like say the entry point was security because it was already like say a developed market. You saw like there was already an install base of like say millions of customers that were like say using an ADT or some of these security service providers. I think that was like, so the market, like say in terms of the consumers were already aware of such a solution. And I think like this whole smart home concept just added like say a good amount of intelligence into the system, which made it more attractive for the customer. And I think like say you're seeing a similar trend, like say in terms of in Europe, where the entry point might not necessarily be security, although I think there are a lot of the players trying to look at it in that sense, because there is also a considerable amount of, say, consumers who actually use security services, like, say, again, from ADT, Securitas Direct, all these players who already have, like, say, a good install base of customers. But I think here, there's been a good amount of awareness when it comes to energy management. Energy prices are really high. There's a lot of, like, say, push from, like, say, be it the in Europe itself, like say from the EU or like say local sort of regional governments in terms of energy management. The smart metering rollouts have been like have created certain amount of buzz around the market as well. So there is like say a good amount of awareness on energy management, and I think a lot of the solutions are starting to see more traction in that area. So you could see traction in terms of thermostats. Not as big as maybe again, like say on the other side, like say in the US or in North America, but then it is starting to grow. There's a fairly good amount of ecosystem sort of with like say OEMs, like say your Netatmo, you have like say Tado, you have like say Hive, like say with British Gas. And so there is like say a certain more awareness in the customer with consumers, and which is always helpful. And it's good to like sort of tap into it. You can actually like sort of expand. Like I said, it's an entry point. So you get in like say into a home saying, okay, you can get a thermostat which will sort of reduce maybe your energy usage. Expand that into maybe like say lighting, which is another huge source of energy, like sort of consumption source, like say when it comes to homes. So, and you can kind of build on that sort of ecosystem, contact sensors. So I think like say in Europe at least, that is what we're seeing. I think like say energy management is like say quite like say on top of that list, and then you also have obviously security and then entertainment. That's always been like say a good sort of entry point, like say in sort of tech savvy sort of consumers who want to maybe integrate their TVs with their home speakers and keep expanding that into lighting and the other things. So yeah, there is like definitely a trend when you see in different regions with regards to applications at least.
Yeah. So if you're giving it away for free, what's the long-term game there? I mean, how are you going to monetize this, or is that not really what you want to do?
Well, of course, at some point in time we absolutely do, but it's really getting into the home and seeing what are the use cases, what's taking off, and then seeing, can we build something on top of it? Can we make some strategic partnerships and deliver something that's even more scalable? So instead of us sitting in the study trying to polish off something nice service, getting the creativity going for us based on our platform, and then see where it goes, and then move in and find some quite simple business cases. Because again, being able to monetize services is also going to be really important in the future. There's lots of developers and small and companies that they have a difficulty in actually charging for their service in the context where it's used. Where we see that as an area going forward as well.
So if you had to sort of place a couple of bets on today where you think those use cases what area they will sort of emerge in, would you agree? Sort of like energy, is that
Yes, I would, but it's also, what's the purchase, why do you do something? Energy efficiency. Do you do it in an old house, or would it be better to go in each time a new house is built? Phil and I talked about this earlier at lunch. Smart homes, well, they're pretty much built. They're not retrofitted. So that might be some of the things coming in there. Security, it's usually after your next door neighbor's been burgled, or you yourself have been burgled. So there are different cases for different smart use cases in the home. I would say the Spotify thing, Spotify dreamt it up for us. It's a social setting. That, okay, now music is much more part of our lives. We have streaming services in the house. How can we make it a bit more entertaining?
Yeah. So what do you think of? I mean, we'll not talk about them specifically, but I mean, here in the UK, O2 launched their smart home offering just a month or two ago. So obviously they're a mobile-only player. And so they've had to, include an ecosystem of devices and the rest of it around that. But I mean, I think they're charging upwards of sort of £30 a month for this service. Do you think? I mean, forget about them specifically, but just do you think that approach can work? I mean, as you said, you're sort of learning what works first and seeing what people want. I mean, that's a lot of money for people to pay, isn't it?
I think at the price level, I can't say anything intelligent about that. But if I take a look at Telia Sense, the smart car, people compared it with a Spotify service. So it's something you pay per month. So there's not an unwillingness to pay for something if just they can see the value of it. And there's no easy, free solution. So I can have smart lighting where I have a very CapEx-heavy investment with Philips, but then I have the solution ongoing for free. Could we come with something that's smarter? Yes, then we may be able to get payment per month.
Okay. Adarsh, we can't talk about the smart home without talking about the Googles and Amazons and everyone else of this world. Where do you see the sort of telcos versus those guys? Is there room for both of them in the smart home, for example?
I think it's largely in terms of the messaging when it comes to the solution. And I think, the Apples and the Googles have been, brilliant when it comes to the messaging. They've kind of, sort of got the message out, in terms of the smart home, versus the telcos going and saying smart energy or smart security. And I think that sort of, again, breaks it down to that silos in terms of how they want to approach the customer. And I think in terms of this sort of shift, what we're seeing in terms of the market from a service to an experience, and I think that's still sort of lagging with the telcos. The telcos are still stuck in that sort of service economy messaging, and it's kind of sort of moved with the Apples going in, the experience and how they've addressed, in terms of delivering a sort of similar experience across the different touch points. And that is where I think they're sort of lacking at the moment. How they actually get across that message in terms of the smart home, how they're actually sort of looking at the market. They have it figured out. It's just that the messaging is still really lacking at the moment. And that is where the Googles and the Amazons have been able to sort of redefine that space a little bit for their own use case. The DIY sort of point solutions also address a lot of the what you call tech-savvy consumers, right? Because not everyone wants to have like a smart home, like say completely, like their whole home completely smart. They like the whole point solutions where they want to maybe just connect their home entertainment system, connect maybe their speakers and all these other things. They have a solution for that. And that addresses that individual consumer's need at that point. And you don't have to go on this £30 per month, which is actually, I think O2 has reduced that to $17.50 by the way.
Are they already? Well,
So it's like a Christmas offer. But like say, so you have like say that sort of solutions, and I think point solutions are quickly gaining traction at the moment, where you have like maybe a thermostat or a say lighting, or like these single point solutions that actually address the sort of consumer's needs at the moment. Where it's still that initial stages in terms of consumer adoption. I think that is where they have actually like sort of gained most traction. Another point is like say how that sort of device to consumer interaction. I think that's another important, what do you call, plays an important role. Say again, we were talking about that whole experience, how a consumer sort of interacts with an Apple or a Google is very different from how I would interact with my cellular service provider. Depends on how my service has been in the past, which might not have been great. And if that service provider comes in and offers me like this great solution, I'm still not going to take it because my service has been really bad for the last year or so, and I'm just waiting for another year to finish so that I can get out of the contract. So I don't want to like say add additional things. But then, and that is where like say the differences as well, how you address that entire sort of experience, the different sort of touch points. And with that, you're kind of blurring the different services. It's all becoming the same thing. And the telcos have a great opportunity here because they can expand this whole array of services that they can offer to the customer or the consumer. But then they'll have to also make sure each of them actually have a same experience, and they can actually like sort of address each of them in a good way. So
yeah, I think to touch on that, there's a few things. The point-to-point are really good because they are tangible. You know, what is a smart home? If you stop someone on the high street and ask them, what's a smart home? And you get lots of different answers if you get an answer at all. So being able to say this use case, okay, I understand, I can see the value for me in the day-to-day. When it comes to comparing the Apples and Googles and the telcos, for example, with Premier Zone, we will have 1.2 million homes addressable for these developers and partners from day one. Google and Apple don't have that in the same way, where it's more devices that are also being shipped out. So that, I would say, is our play on seeing if we can differentiate ourselves. And again, trying to open up for other people to do I wouldn't say do our innovation for us, but help us.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously that is the challenge, you said, because Apple and Google and the rest of it, people know what they're going to get to a certain extent with the products, but they don't know what they're going to get. You might be there in the home, but they don't know what they're going to get, from you in that field.
To be fair, people don't know why they need it, because it's new behavior, and we have to be very humble about trying to introduce new behavior. It's not something that comes in overnight. When people have a new lighting system in the house, it takes ages to find the right contact. Where do you turn on the lights?
Yeah. One of the things that has come up several times this morning, obviously perfectly illustrated by Tony's presentation, is around the security angle. What do you see as the real kind of concern with how much of a concern is it around the smart home? As you said, Deutsche Telekom, their routers have been hacked this week. How much of a concern is that, and what do you think we can do to mitigate the risks there?
I would say when working with IoT for consumers, well, in general with IoT, having a security office or officer assigned to a project and a product afterwards, it's been fundamental. It's not something at least I've seen in many other traditional telco products. Of course, you have security and everything has to be in place, but you're working with services that change over time. There's many moving parts. You have partners coming in, firmware updates, and so forth. So if security isn't in place, the market disappears overnight. So of course, no one's going to implement a smart home if the burglar can stand outside and shout, "Open door," which was it was very good presentation by Tony, by the way.
Yeah. Adarsh, what do you think about the whole security angle and the smart home? I mean, it's another big risk that telcos, if they're doing it, are opening them themselves and their customers up to, isn't it?
I think in that essence, I think they have, at least in my opinion, I think the telcos have a slightly better edge against maybe the point solution sort of providers, where, like I said, because they go in with, like, say, this sort of end-to-end sort of solution with the platform and the curated sort of devices, they're more in control in terms of how they actually implement the solution. I'm not saying, like, say, they're perfect, but I'm saying, like, they have a better, approach. They can actually sort of decide what level of security sort of to implement, how secure to sort of, where to put the security. Should it be at the end devices? Should it be at the gateway? And I think that actually is starting to become a little, that is a value proposition. It's like, say, at least there is a little bit of more secure network sort of offering from when it comes from the telcos versus like the point solution. I'm not blaming the point solution guys either, because at the moment they're, like, say, really trying to push consumer adoption, which is, and how they do that is by making it very simple to actually sort of install or implement. So you kind of sort of look away at the more secure sort of way of implementing certain things. Like, say, be it a Zigbee or a Z-Wave or a Wi-Fi, all of them have good security features, but then you kind of dumb it down so that you can just go plug it in, boom, you have, like, say, access to it and everything's working. And I think that implementation is extremely key, and it's becoming very, very important, mostly because of, like, say, the increasing number of attacks that are taking place. People are becoming more aware of certain things, such things. And it kind of, like, sort of does a disservice to the market as well, where you might have a great service. You have most of these solutions already in place. You have good level of security. Just because you're dumbing it down so that you can actually get consumer adoption, you kind of, like, say, harm this sort of market in a way as well. So I think there should be more emphasis in terms of security. I think the standards should sort of go for that higher level of security and not give the option to go level 1, level 2, level 3, and then say just level 3. This is the best way to implement it, and this is how it should be. And I think that is getting, and you're kind of getting there. I think they are working on these things at the moment, and they're trying to make it more secure. You saw how, like, initially the telcos had the broadband routers with, like, say, the no password sort of solution, right? And they kind of, like, say, learned from their mistakes. So they said, okay, you have, like, say, the password at the back, change it, but then you're still going to have a secure network because it's going to be password protected. And I think those are the sort of learnings that you kind of get from initially introducing a product and then, like, eventually, like, say, getting to a more mature stage, I guess.
Okay. I have to put you...
Yeah, security and usability don't always go hand in hand. It can be a challenge.
If I had to put you on the spot, and you've talked about two things today, the smart home and the smart car, which is a bigger business opportunity for Telia? Smart car.
By far.
By far.
Yeah.
Because?
Well, it's a single vehicle retrofitting of car. It's a blue ocean at the moment for telco, if you get it right, and you can activate the ecosystem. I can see the traction we get going in, talking to established players that are relevant in the context of car ownership or car usage. They buy into, yes, we understand there's only one OBD port. Let's make sure, you know, we're not in the game of connectivity, not in the game of selling hardware. We're in the game of selling, well, we really want to sell services and keep contact with our customers. So absolutely the connected
car is bigger.